Hi, welcome back. This is the part one video, just a quick introduction to what the next project is going to be. So Kubota OC95, all these crushers are running this, and I've decided to try and put petrol engines in. So I've gone ahead and bought one of these. So it's a Vanguard, 14 horsepower. More horsepower than the OC95, but it's got the same torque, and that's quite important. I'll come on to that later. So it's not straightforward. It's going to present quite a number of engineering challenges. The first one is that the base of this is smaller than the base of this. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is get a sheet of metal cut to go across the engine mounts, and then bolt the new engine to that. The other challenge is that the fuel tank is in the middle. Now, that in itself is not too much of a problem. There is actually a cutout under here because the manufacturer originally was going to put petrol engines on these. So I might be able to get to line up to that, but I need to get an adapter to go onto the top of this fuel tank to enable the fuel tank filler to pop out the top of here. So those are a couple of fairly major challenges to get over. I've got to hope that the PTO coupling will line up with the bolt holes on the back of the engine. If I can get them to line up and I can fit the PTO pump and sort the fuel tank problem out, we're almost there. Then I've got to get around the wiring. So the key switch is here. I need to convert it to run the key switch up on the side of the machine. I also need to work out the stop solenoid, because on the OC95 it runs an electrical stop solenoid. This is just an earth wire. Got to get that sorted out. I've got to connect a throttle cable up to this so that when the operator uses the throttle, this will move from the throttle that's up on the side of the machine. Manual choke on this, again, that's not an issue. Anyway, there's a few other things. So let's just talk about some of the cons of having this diesel engine. So these are all things that I've experienced over the years, which I'm hoping by fitting these will eliminate. First one is the noise. They're extremely noisy engines, so I'm hoping this will be quieter. Second, quite major thing is the cost of these is getting on for £2,000. This delivered was about £700, so it's quite a saving. The other problem I have is people misfueling, so they put petrol in the engine. That writes off the fuel pump and the injector. New fuel pump's 400 quid and injector's about 300, so there's 700 quid gone, which is the cost of one of these engines. The other issue I have is that they ingest dust far too easily, gets into the piston rings, and then the engine's written off. This has got a cyclone air cleaner, so it's much more efficient at dealing with dust. The other disadvantage of this engine needs a lot of cranking amps to get it to go. If the battery drains, you cannot start it. But if the battery drains with this engine fitted, we've got a pull cord. So at least there's a way of starting the machine. I get a lot of problems with people leaving the ignition on, drains the battery from the fan running. So there we are. This is my machine I don't hire out, so I'm going to try this as an experiment. I've got a lot of things to sort of work on. I've got some bits and pieces to do to this engine, which I'll obviously film as we go along. So fingers crossed, if I can get this to work, I'll eventually be able to convert all the machines to run. It's just going to make life a lot easier. So stay tuned for part two as and when. See you on the next one.